A woman at a charity gala in Beverly Hills spent 4 minutes complaining to the event coordinator about a man who did not belong there. He was by the window. Dark jacket, plain white shirt, no tie. A glass of water he had not touched. Looking at the city below with the particular stillness of someone who is thinking rather than performing the act of attending. She had noticed him when she arrived, and she had been noticing him since, and the noticing had become, over the course of the evening's first hour, a low-grade irritation she could no longer contain. "That man by the window," she said to the coordinator, a 24-year-old named Lily Cho, who had been on her feet for 9 hours. "He does not look like he belongs here. Find out who brought him." Lily looked at the man by the window. She looked at the gala program in her hand. She looked at the woman in front of her. "Miss Whitmore," she said carefully. "I'm not being unkind," the woman said. "I'm being practical. This event has a certain standard. The donors have expectations." "Someone who looks like he wandered in off the street, Miss Whitmore," Lily said again. "What?" Lily held out the program. It was the Gala program for the 3rd annual Evening for Arts Education, a fundraiser that had, in 2 previous years, raised a combined $4,300,000 for music and visual arts programs in underfunded Los Angeles public schools. On the inside cover, above the list of supporters, was a single name in larger type. Presenting sponsor, Hillside Pacific Films. Below it, in the acknowledgement section, a line that had been typeset in a slightly smaller font. This evening would not be possible without the founding generosity of Keanu Reeves, whose personal commitment to arts education in Los Angeles public schools made the inaugural gala possible, and whose continued support sustains this program today. The woman read it. She read it again. She looked at the man by the window. He had not moved. He was still looking at the city. He had heard none of it. What happened in the next 40 minutes would leave the room 217 people who had paid $3,500 per ticket to be there, in a silence so total that the string quartet in the corner stopped playing without being asked. There is a venue on Wilshire Boulevard in Beverly Hills called the Harrington Conservancy Hall. It is not the largest event space in the city, and it is not the most famous, but it has, across 30 years of use, developed a reputation for a particular quality of occasion. The ceilings run 22 feet, supported by pale limestone columns. The east wall is glass from floor to ceiling, facing the city, and on a clear evening in November the view stretches from downtown to the ocean, the city laid out in its particular geometry of light and distance. The room holds 320 for a seated dinner. For a standing gala with round cocktail tables and a stage at the north end, it holds considerably more and feels, at capacity, like the inside of something important. The Evening for Arts Education had taken over the Conservancy Hall for the 3rd consecutive year. The organizing committee, chaired by Victoria Whitmore, had spent 11 months producing what Victoria described in her committee meetings as the definitive arts philanthropy event of the Los Angeles calendar. She had a gift for this kind of statement and made it regularly. Tables were dressed in white linen with centerpieces of eucalyptus and cream ranunculus. The catering was from a restaurant in West Hollywood, whose executive chef had been on the cover of a food magazine 3 months prior. The string quartet was playing Ravel. The bar was open and staffed by 3 bartenders who had been briefed on the wine list to a depth that most guests would not require, but Victoria felt was essential. 217 people were in attendance. They were, by any reasonable measure, well dressed. Women in gowns or structured cocktail dresses, men in suits, most of them dark, most of them well cut. The specific uniform of a charitable occasion in a city that knew how to dress for charitable occasions. The man by the window was wearing a dark jacket and a plain white shirt with no tie. He had arrived at 7:47, 11 minutes before the program was scheduled to begin, alone, and had accepted a glass of water at the door and made his way to the east wall and stood there. He had spoken to 3 people in the first hour, briefly, warmly, without seeking out the conversation or prolonging it. He had the quality of someone who was glad to be in a room and did not need the room to know it. His name was on the inside cover of the program. His name was on the deed of gift that had underwritten the inaugural gala 3 years ago, a personal contribution of $600,000 that had made the first event possible when the organizing committee's fundraising had stalled at $400,000 short of the minimum required to launch. He had not been on the organizing committee. He had been approached by the program's founder, a woman named Dr. Celeste Okafor, who ran arts education initiatives through a non-profit she had built over 14 years, and he had said yes, and he had written the check, and he had attended each year because Dr. Okafor asked him to, and because the cause was real, and he believed in showing up for things he believed in. He had not worn a tuxedo to any of the 3 galas. He was not going to start tonight. You need to understand something about Victoria Whitmore before you understand what she said to Lily Cho. She was 53 years old and had been chairing the gala committee for 2 years, having been invited to join by a board member who had worked with her on a hospital gala in Brentwood and had found her organizational precision and her social connections both genuinely useful. She was a good event organizer. This was not in dispute. The logistics of the 3rd annual gala, the venue, the catering, the program, the auction items, the seating arrangement, had been executed with a thoroughness that had made Dr. Okafor's team's work significantly easier. Victoria brought a standard to these events that was measurable in the details, and the details mattered. She was also, in ways she had not fully examined, running a performance. She lived in Hancock Park, in a house that had been bought at the right time and furnished over 12 years with the specific deliberateness of someone who understood that the objects around you communicate your position and had made sure hers communicated correctly. She served on 4 charitable boards. She attended 7 to 9 charity events per year and chaired 2 of them. She had a circle of women whose friendship was warm and whose social geography overlapped exactly with hers, and who had never, collectively, suggested to her that there was any version of her life that needed to be different. She had grown up in Fresno, the daughter of a high school music teacher who had spent 30 years trying to make art feel necessary to teenagers who were mostly thinking about something else. Her mother had painted, oils, seriously, a studio, in the garage. Canvases that stacked against the walls and were rarely shown to anyone outside the family. The house had been modest and full of music and paint, and the specific richness of a family that did not have money, but had made something in its place. Victoria had left Fresno at 18 for USC, had studied communications, had married at 26 a man who worked in commercial real estate, and had done very well in it, and had built, across 30 years, the life that her parents' life had been quietly adjacent to, the life of the people who came to the museum opening, who sat in the front rows, who had their names on the programs. She had not, in Fresno, been in those rows. She had been in the audience, watching what she had never told anyone, not her husband, not the women in her circle, not the board members who had invited her to chair committees, was that she had been accepted at 18 to the California Institute of the Arts. She had been accepted for visual art. She had looked at the acceptance letter and the tuition figures and the distance from everything she knew, and she had sent back the decline card and enrolled at USC instead. She had not painted since she was 22. She had become, instead, a patron of the arts. She had done it sincerely. The checks were real. The time was real. The commitment to the events was genuine. But somewhere underneath the sincerity was a thing she had not examined. The belief that proximity to the arts, managed from the right position, with the right clothes and the right venue and the right crowd, was a form of the thing itself. She had built a life of proximity. And the man by the window, in his plain jacket and his white shirt, attending an event that bore his name on the inside cover, looking at the city with the ease of someone who did not need the room's confirmation of anything. He was a disruption to the specific story she had been telling herself. She could not have said why, exactly. She just knew that he looked wrong. She found Lily Cho at 8:19. Lily Cho had been the event coordinator for the Evening for Arts Education for 7 months. She was 24 years old and had a degree in nonprofit management from Cal State Northridge, and a capacity for logistical detail that had impressed Dr. Okafor enough to hire her despite her youth and her relative inexperience with events of this scale. She had spent the day managing 17 vendors, a lighting malfunction in the stage rig that had been resolved at 5:48, a catering substitution for a guest's allergy, and a parking situation involving a board member's driver that she preferred not to think about. She was at the bar area coordinating a champagne top-up schedule when Victoria Whitmore appeared at her elbow. She listened to 4 minutes of it. She held the Gala program the entire time. When Victoria finished, Lily looked at the program. She looked at the inside cover. She looked at Victoria. She held out the program. Victoria took it. She read it. She read it again. Her face did not change dramatically. It was not the face of someone who had been caught. It was the face of someone who was very controlled and was applying that control to a situation that was requiring more of it than usual. "I see," she said. She handed the program back. She looked at the man by the window. He had moved slightly, now in conversation with a woman Lily recognized as one of the nonprofit's board members, an older woman named Dr. Okafor, who was laughing at something he had said. "I'd like to speak with him," Victoria said. Lily looked at her. "Miss Whitmore, I'm going to apologize," Victoria said. She said it simply, without apparent difficulty, which surprised Lily. "I'd like to do it before the program starts." Lily looked at the clock on the far wall. 8:23. The program was scheduled for 8:30. "Of course," she said. She watched Victoria cross the room. She stood where she was, holding the program, watching. What happened next was not what Lily expected. Victoria reached the man by the window. He turned when she approached, the easy turn of someone who is not startled because they are generally paying attention to the space around them. He looked at her with a neutral expression. She said something. He listened. He said something. She said something else. His expression did not change. He nodded. Once, he said something brief. He looked at Dr. Okafor, who was still beside him, and said something to her that made her look at Victoria with an expression that was professional and unreadable. Then Victoria Whitmore walked back across the room. Not to Lily, not to her table. She walked past the bar and through the service door, and was gone. Lily stood with the program. The room moved around her, the cocktail hour in its final minutes, guests finding their tables, the string quartet finishing a piece and pausing. She looked at the service door. She looked at the man by the window. He was talking to Dr. Okafor again, as if nothing had happened. He caught Lily's eye across the room. He held it for a moment. Then he tilted his head slightly toward the service door. Lily understood. The service corridor behind the main hall was narrow and fluorescent lit and smelled of the eucalyptus centerpieces and something industrial underneath. Victoria Whitmore was standing against the wall with her evening bag held in both hands in the specific way of a woman who is holding herself together with the same hands. Lily came through the door. "What did he say?" Lily asked. Victoria looked at her. "He said it was all right," she said. Lily waited. He said, Victoria stopped. She looked at the far wall. He said, "It is all right. These things happen. Please don't let it affect the evening." She was quiet. That is a very specific thing to say. "Yes," Lily said. "He was kind about it," Victoria said. She said it with a quality in her voice that Lily had not heard there before, something that was not quite bewilderment but was adjacent to it. I don't know what I expected. Not that." Lily said nothing. "He asked me one thing," Victoria said. "What?" "He asked me what had made me think he didn't belong." She paused, not angrily, just what made you think that? Genuinely curious. "What did you say?" Victoria looked at her hands. "I said the jacket." She was very still, and he nodded like that was an answer he understood, like it wasn't the first time someone had said something like that to him. She looked at the wall. He said, "I've been wearing this jacket to things like this for 20 years. It hasn't changed anything about what happens in the room." Lily held the program. "The program was in my hand the whole time," she said. "When you came to me, I should have shown it to you before you got to the end of what you were saying." Victoria looked at her. "You showed it to me when I was done. I should have shown it sooner." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Yes," she said, "but I should not have needed the program." She looked at the door to the main hall. Through it, faintly, the sound of the room settling into its dinner configuration. "I should not have needed to read his name before understanding that he had a right to stand by that window." Lily said nothing. "He asked me one more thing," Victoria said. She stopped. "He asked about the students," she said. "The ones the program serves. He asked if I knew any of their names." The service corridor was very quiet. "I chair this event," Victoria said. "I have chaired it for 2 years. I have read the program. I have approved the program. I have stood at that podium and spoken about the importance of this work." She looked at the program in Lily's hand. "I do not know a single student's name." Lily looked at her. "I know 43, Lily said. "From the school visits." Victoria looked at her. Something moved through her face, not performance, not the controlled surface, something underneath. The face of a woman from Fresno who had looked at a Cal Arts acceptance letter at 18 and had been doing something adjacent to the things she had loved ever since. "Tell me one," Victoria said. Lily thought. "Marcus," she said. 14, Lincoln Middle School in Boyle Heights, plays cello. His teacher says he's the best student she's had in 11 years. Victoria was quiet. "Marcus," she said. "Yes," through the door, the sound of chairs finding their places, of a room becoming a dinner. "I should go back in," Victoria said. "Yes," Lily said. "Will you walk back in with me?" Lily looked at her. "Of course," she said. Keanu was at his table when Lily found him between the appetizer and the main course. He was in conversation with the man to his left, a music teacher from Inglewood, who had brought 2 of his students as the program's guests of honor. And he was listening with the quality of listening that looked like stillness from a distance, and was, up close, the opposite. He saw Lily approach and finished his sentence and turned. "Is she all right?" he asked. "I think so," Lily said. "She's at her table." He looked across the room to where Victoria Whitmore was seated, at the committee table, the best table, the one with a direct sightline to the stage. She was talking to the man beside her with the professional ease that was her surface, but something in her posture was different from earlier, slightly less constructed, slightly more present. "She asked me what made me think she didn't belong," Lily said. "In the corridor. About herself." She paused. "I think the conversation you had shifted something." Keanu looked at Victoria's table. "She told me about Fresno," he said. Lily looked at him. She told you about Fresno in 2 minutes at a cocktail party? She told me she grew up around art, he said. Her mother painted. Her father taught music for 30 years. He looked at his water glass. She said she left all of it when she was 18 and went to business school. Communications, Lily said. Automatically, he looked at her. A slight expression. Not quite a smile. You've done your research, he said. I have a file on every committee member, Lily said. It's how I do my job. Did you know about the CalArts acceptance? Lily was quiet. No, she said. She mentioned it, he said. Just briefly. Like something she was saying out loud for the first time. He was quiet for a moment. She has been funding the things she walked away from. For years. Very well, apparently. The event logistics are extraordinary. He looked at the room. But she's been doing it from the outside. Lily looked at the room. The tables, the centerpieces, the gowns and the suits, and the string quartet now taking their break near the stage. The students, she said. You asked her about the students. I asked if she knew any names, he said. Not to embarrass her, because that's the inside. He looked at her. The room is not the inside. The room is very beautiful and the room matters, but the inside is Marcus in Boyle Heights, who plays cello and whose teacher says he's the best in 11 years. He paused. She can't get inside from a table. Lily held the program. She thought about 7 months of school visits and 43 names, and the specific feeling of sitting in a classroom in Boyle Heights, listening to a 14-year-old play something on a cello that made the music teacher's eyes go somewhere private. She asked me to tell her a name, Lily said. In the corridor. Did you? Marcus. He nodded. That's a start, he said. He looked across the room again. She's going to want to do something with it, he said. She's not a person who sits with information and doesn't act. That's actually what makes her useful in this room. He looked at Lily. When she comes to you, and she will come to you, point her toward Dr. Okafor, not the committee work. The school visits. Lily looked at him. You want her in the classrooms, she said. She already knows how to run a room, he said. She needs to know the room isn't the point. He picked up his fork. The food is very good, he said. You should eat something before the program starts. Lily looked at him. She had not eaten since noon. Thank you, she said. He had already turned back to the music teacher. Victoria Whitmore went to the podium at 9:15. She had spoken at the previous 2 galas. She had a prepared text, 3 minutes, elegant, the kind of speech that acknowledged the importance of the work and thanked the donors, and built to a call for continued support with a professional warmth that she had delivered, both times to significant applause. She stood at the podium. She looked at the prepared text. She set it aside. The room noticed. 217 people who had been attending events long enough to know what it looked like when someone decided not to say what they had prepared. I have a speech, she said. It's good. I worked on it for 2 weeks. She looked at the room. I'm going to say something else instead. The room was quiet. I grew up in Fresno, she said. My father taught music to high school students for 30 years. My mother painted in the garage. I grew up in a house where art was not a luxury or a cause. It was just the air. She paused. I have been chairing this event for 2 years, she said. And tonight, for the first time, I learned the name of a student this program serves. She stopped. His name is Marcus. He's 14. He plays cello at Lincoln Middle School in Boyle Heights. His teacher says he is the best student she's had in 11 years. She looked at the room. I should have known his name on the first day, she said. That is what I want to say. not a call to action, not a thank you to our sponsors, though I will get to that, and it is genuine. Just. His name is Marcus, and the reason this room exists is so that Marcus has a cello and a teacher and somewhere to take what he can do. The room was still. She looked at the inside cover of the program. She did not hold it up. She just looked at it, briefly, and then looked at the room. I would also like to apologize, she said, to one person in this room, for something I said earlier this evening. He knows who he is. I will not embarrass him further by naming him. But he was standing by the window when I arrived, and he is still in this room. And he belongs here more than almost anyone, and I am sorry. She looked at the man by the window. He was not by the window now. He was at his table. In his dark jacket and his white shirt, he was looking at her with the expression that was not quite a smile, and had been his expression all evening. He nodded. Once, she nodded back. She picked up the prepared text. Now, she said. The speech. The room laughed, gently, warmly, the laugh of people who have just watched something real happen and are relieved to have a moment to breathe. The applause when she finished was the longest the event had produced in 3 years. Lily Cho, standing at the back of the room with her event clipboard, was pretending her eyes were not doing what they were doing. She was not the only one. Victoria Whitmore went on her first school visit 6 weeks later. Lily had arranged it, a Thursday morning at Lincoln Middle School in Boyle Heights, a 40-minute drive from Hancock Park in traffic. Victoria had asked for whatever was available. Lily had arranged the music room, where Marcus's class held their weekly rehearsal. Victoria sat in the back row of chairs that the school's music teacher, whose name was Mrs. Patricia Wen, had set out for visitors. The class was 7 students. Strings, they rehearsed a piece for 20 minutes, with Mrs. Wen stopping them 3 times to work on a passage that was not quite right. The 3rd time through it was right. And the sound in that room, the particular sound of 7 young instruments finding each other, landed in Victoria's chest in a specific place that she had not felt anything land in for a very long time. She did not make a scene of it. She sat in the back row and let it land. Afterward, Mrs. Wen introduced her to the students. "This is Miss Whitmore," Mrs. Wen said. "She helps organize the gala that funds our program." The students looked at her with the polite, mild interest of people who have been introduced to an adult in an official capacity and are waiting to find out if the adult is going to be interesting. Victoria looked at Marcus. He was 14, with a cello that was slightly too large for him. Not dramatically, just the particular proportion of a young musician who was growing into their instrument. He had the posture of someone who had been told many times how to hold the cello, and had internalized it so completely that it no longer looked like instruction. "Marcus," she said. He looked at her. "Your teacher says you're the best student she's had in 11 years. He looked at Mrs. Wen. Mrs. Wen looked back at him with the expression of someone who stands behind what she has said. "Thank you," he said. He said it simply, without false modesty or performance. "I heard you play today," Victoria said. "She's right." He held his cello by the neck with the ease of familiarity. "Thank you," he said again. Victoria came back the following month, and the month after. She did not make announcements about it. She did not post about it. She came on Thursday mornings and sat in the back row and listened and introduced herself to new students when Mrs. Wen made introductions and learned their names and wrote them in a small notebook she had bought for this purpose. By the end of the year, she had 41 names. She told Lily this on a call in December. 41, Lily said. "I know you have 43, Victoria said. "I'm coming for you." Lily laughed. In the spring, Victoria proposed a new element to the gala, a student performance, live, 15 minutes at the start of the program. Not a showcase. Not a demonstration. A performance. The kind that required the room to sit down and be quiet and listen to something being made by people who were learning to make it. Dr. Okafor agreed immediately. The performance, at the 4th Annual Evening for Arts Education, opened with Marcus on cello, a 3-minute piece that Mrs. Wen had helped him prepare, and that he played from memory, standing at the front of the room with 231 people quiet around him. Victoria was at her committee table. She did not look at the program. She watched Marcus. When the piece ended, the room was still for a moment, the particular stillness that follows something that has gone somewhere real. Then, the applause started and did not stop for 43 seconds, which was, for a philanthropic gala in Beverly Hills, unprecedented. Lily counted. She had a habit of counting things. Later, when people asked Victoria what had changed about the gala in the 4th year, why it had felt different, why the room had stayed later and given more than any previous year, she said the same thing each time. "We learned the names first," she said. She said it simply. She said it the way you say something that has become so basic to your understanding of how the world works that you have stopped being able to imagine not knowing it. She had, in Lily's private accounting, become a genuinely different kind of donor in the 14 months since the service corridor. Not louder, not more visible, just more inside. She had found the inside. It had taken a man in a dark jacket standing by a window to point her toward the door. I keep coming back to what he said at the table. The room is not the inside. I have been turning that sentence over for a long time. Not because it is complicated, it is actually very simple. But because it cuts through so many things we build around ourselves without our noticing. Victoria Whitmore was not a bad person. She was, by most measures, a good donor and an effective organizer, and a woman who had given real time and real money to something real. She believed in what she was doing. The belief was genuine. But she had built a beautiful room and stood in it and told herself that the room was the thing. The room is not the thing. The room is where the thing can be celebrated and funded and made visible to people with the resources to sustain it. The room serves a purpose. But the thing itself is a 14-year-old in Boyle Heights with a cello that is slightly too large for him, playing a passage until it is right, and then playing it right. That is the thing. The thing happens in a music room on a Thursday morning, with 7 students and a teacher who has been doing this for 11 years and has learned not to be surprised when something extraordinary shows up in an ordinary chair. Victoria drove to Boyle Heights on a Thursday morning. 40 minutes in traffic. She sat in the back row. She learned 41 names. That is the inside. I think about how long it would have taken without that conversation at the cocktail party, without the program with his name on it, without him asking, quietly and without mockery, "What made you think that?" And then, in the same quiet voice, asking about the students. He did not lecture her. He did not tell her she was wrong, and here is the right way. He asked what made her think that, and he asked about the students, and those 2 questions did more than any lecture could have done, because they pointed at the gap between where she was and where the thing actually lived. She found the door. He just told her there was one. I do not know what I would have done in his position if I had funded an evening and arrived in my regular clothes and been told, by someone who should have known better, that I looked out of place. I want to think I would have been as composed. I want to think I would have asked the right questions instead of making a scene. But I also know that what he did required something most of us do not practice: the ability to be in a room where you have been wronged and to look past the wrong to the person underneath it and to see, actually see, what that person is carrying that made the wrong possible. He saw Fresno. That is the sentence I keep coming back to. In 2 minutes at a cocktail party, in plain clothes, having just been told he did not belong, he saw Fresno. That is a particular kind of seeing. This story is fictional, inspired by Keanu Reeves's well-known quality of patience and his genuine, long-standing commitment to arts education in Los Angeles. If something in it stayed with you, drop a comment. Tell me about the room you've been in and the inside you haven't found yet, or the inside you finally did. If you know someone who is building a beautiful room and standing in it and thinking the room is the point, share this with them, gently, the way he did. Subscribe. More stories are coming. See you in the next one.